Ready?
Yep.
I would like to call this recommending meeting to order on August 4th, 2009. I would like to ask the recorder if everything is in order.
It is.
Hearing that, we'll move to the first order of business, which is bill number 2009-32, which is an abeyance item authorized under certain circumstances, the administrative extension of temporary licenses, approval, and administrative reinstatement of alcoholic beverages licenses suspended or revoked for non-payment of license fees, proposed by Bradford R. Jerbick. Is there anyone here from staff that will be representing this item?
Let me run us through what we did last time. If you remember, this bill, as introduced, would have allowed a person whose license, whose alcoholic beverage license had been suspended, or, well, right now they're revoked, but it would propose that a person who fails to pay their fees on time, their license would be suspended, and then they would have a period of time within which to reinstate that suspension. If a license was revoked under existing law, they would also have that period of time to reinstate. We also presented a couple of cleanup items in our first amendment that you had before you last time. Those would clarify that a temporary license may not be sold or transferred while under temporary status, and also that when it's asked to be put into inactive or non-operational status, that request doesn't take into effect until the director has affirmatively indicated that it is in temporary status. If you recall, Councilman Barlow had a question about the basis, the initial part of the bill, which is allowing someone whose license has been revoked or suspended for non-payment to have that reinstatement period. And so we have Mr. Jim DeFury here from Business Licensing to answer any questions you might have about the purpose of that provision.
Okay.
Councilman Barlow, Councilman Anthony, Jim DeFury, Manager of Business Services. This is something that we have been put into motion many months ago, knowing that the economy was on its downturn, and believe that in many cases some of our licensees for privilege licenses in the alcohol-related industry were finding it very tough and very difficult to pay the fees to keep that license active, or either on non-operational status. The code, the way it reads today, is that if they don't pay that fee within 60 days, it's an automatic revocation. And this is something that has been on the books and records for many years. And essentially, it doesn't afford them a due process. And I think that that's, in this economy today, the proposed amendments do afford them an opportunity to correct the non-payment of license fees within a very short period of time on the suspension, and then it allows them additional leeway after the license has been revoked, after that non-payment for that 10-day period on a suspended license. So what this is intending to do is to allow, at least under some circumstances, the opportunity to come back and pay the city the fees with a penalty and with an additional fee included. But as we know, these licenses are very valuable, and in some cases, or in most cases, they want to be able to try to sell that license to keep other businesses that they may be involved in ongoing, or to use that money to invest in another business, which may be, hopefully, here in the city of Las Vegas at some point in time later in the future. So I think this is our attempt to be able to say, we're going to give you a second chance to correct the issue of non-payment of fees, and afford them an opportunity for a period of time to be able to correct that issue.
Why didn't we just increase the penalty versus extending the amount of time?
We could have done that, and right now I think in the first portion of the bill, they're required to pay any back fees owing for that period of time, or that new billing cycle, plus the penalty, which in this case would be a 35% penalty, and for that first 10 days after that 60-day period, they pay 1/2 of the original fee that was owing. So in the case of a tavern would owe $1,200 on April 1st. And
Well, let me stop you there and ask you to walk me through the process. A tavern, for example, closes on January 1st. Walk me from there as far as the 90-day or the 120-day period prior to revocation.
Okay. The tavern closes on January 1st. Their fees, while they're open, are paid up through March 31st. So in March, we send them a new bill to pay their fees from April 1st on. Now, when they close down, they have the option of selling that license immediately before they close down, or keeping it on non-operational status with their fees paid to be able to sell that at a later date.
Through March.
Through March. Now, come March 31st, when that license is due for renewal on April 1st, if they pay the fees from April 1st on, which in this case would be $1,200, then that keeps on non-operational status, keeps that value of $60,000 alive for them to sell that license to another party.
For how long? The
Well,
next 6 months?
there's no time, yeah, as long as they pay the fees for the next 6 months, they can do it in that 6-month period. And I'll get to that in just a minute.
Okay.
When they pay their fees on April 1st, their license is active for another 6 months through the end of September. If they don't pay their fees today, they are charged a 35% penalty after 15 days. So they have $1,200 plus 35% of that, and they get until June 1st to pay that original fee plus the penalty to keep that license active.
Now, you said 35% of the $1,200.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so now it rolls around to June 1st or right around that time. It's for 60 days from April 1st on. If they haven't paid the fee at that point in time, at close of business on June 1st, their license is automatically revoked. So they have no value, no asset, nothing that they can continue to sell. So that's a dead given at this point in time. This bill would allow them to come into us and say, hey, I changed my mailing address, or I was out of town, I didn't get a chance to pay my fees. What do I need to do to bring my license active again? Well, within that first 10-day period, they have to pay that $1,200, 35% penalty on that, and then half of the $1,200, which would be $600 in this case, to bring that license active again, but they have 10 days to do that. It also says after 10 days, if they haven't done that, it's automatically revoked. But the second portion of that says if it's been automatically revoked, you have 90 days from that revocation date to bring that license back to an active status by paying the $1,200 that was originally owed, the 35% penalty on top of that, plus an additional $1,200 to make that license active from 90 days from the date of revocation. So we're really giving them two opportunities to be able to make that license active again if they haven't paid their fees within the first 60 days. One is a penalty, or essentially a penalty of half of the fee that you owe plus the 35% plus the original cost, and the other one is a penalty equal to the amount of the cost of that tavern license on top of the penalty fee. So with these two provisions, it now gives them two opportunities to correct the issue that they haven't corrected during that first 60-day period.
So after the 90 days and it's still not paid, after the 90-day revocation and it's still not paid, what happens at that point?
It's gone forever. They can't get it back, and that's what happens today. That automatic revocation, Brad has told us that there's no appeal rights on that, and it's automatically gone. And I think that over the years, that may have been okay during the economic times, and today, with the economy the way it is, we felt it was a little bit, we were trying to be a little bit more working with the business industry to give them an opportunity to correct the situation where it could be that they were just on hard times and couldn't make those fees payable to us within that period of time of 60 days.
So today we don't have the 90-day.
That's correct.
And we're looking to add the 90-day.
That's correct.
Why 90-day versus 30, 60?
Well, I think that was something that we kind of hammered around 30, 60, 90. I guess we were trying to, on the long end of it, give them an opportunity within that period of time. Maybe 30 days was a little bit too small. 60 might be a little bit more workable. 90 was certainly giving them an opportunity to make the situation a better situation for themselves. There's no magic number of 90 days. I think we were just trying to give them an opportunity outside of that 10-day, that initial period of trying to correct the issue.
As the director of business licensing, having a license, a privileged license hanging out there for that 90-day period, which is actually more, because if you stop operating January 1st, you have through March, rightfully so, under the code, because they've paid their license through March, and then you have the 30-day penalty period, and then the revocation kicks in for additional 90 days, so that's actually 120 days that a privileged license is hanging out there.
Well, technically it's 60 days from April 1st. That's when their new bill for that next 6-month period is due.
Okay, so it's even longer. It's 180 days.
Councilman? I just wanted to clarify, we can do it the way that Jim is describing. The intent of the bill as written was, if you want to look at page 2 of your bill, I think either the First Amendment or the original, either one is fine. You'll see the underlined subsection C. That talks about people who, in the future, after this bill, if this bill were adopted, people who in the future would have their license suspended for non-payment would have 10 days. That's it. And after that 10 days runs, if they haven't made their payment, the license is automatically revoked forever.
That's today,
Right.
correct?
Well,
That's under the new bill.
under the new bill. D is completely independent. It's people who, in the past, under the existing provision of the law, have already had their license revoked. They're not subject to the 10 days after suspension because their license wasn't suspended and won't be suspended. It was revoked. D operates independently and says anybody whose license in the past has been revoked for non-payment has the 90 days. It's not 90 plus 10 the way it's written. It's 10 for those who don't pay their fees and are suspended in the future. Hasn't happened yet because this bill hasn't been adopted. D is reaching backward. We had to write 2 different provisions, one for those that are subject to the new law and one who are subject to the old law, and that's the difference. Does that sound right, Jim?
You just educated me a little bit on
Okay.
that, and I think it does sound
Yeah.
right the way you just described it.
Yeah, the intent wasn't to give them 2 bites. 10 days, if you finish your 10 days, you're automatically revoked, then you have another 90. No. One set of rules for those who are suspended in the future, and one set of rules for those who have been revoked under the existing law in the past.
I guess the sticking point for me is the 90 days. That seems way out there. I would be more prone to 60 days.
I certainly work with that.
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
I do have a question though.
please.
Okay, so that during that 10-day period, who decides whether the license is revoked or they're given another opportunity? Who decides that, and what criteria do you use to determine whether or not their license is going to be revoked? It seems like it's kind of just somebody's opinion. So can you kind of explain that to me, Jim?
Well, I think on June 1st at 5 o'clock, we determine, okay, who has not paid their fees? And I believe we can either do one of two things. We can either notify them that they have a 10-day grace period to pay their fees, plus a penalty, plus half of the fee that was required. And by the end of June 10th, if they haven't paid their fees, their license is automatically revoked. So I think the code allows us that administrative action to take place at that time. If at the end of that June 10th, the fees still haven't been paid, it's an automatic revocation. There's no appeal. There's no further continuance of this particular account. So That, I think, is how it would work, the way the code is written today.
So it cannot go past 10 days.
It shouldn't, no, it shouldn't go past 10 days, because there's an automatic revocation at the end of that 10-day
So if they
period.
say, I need more time, I need 2 more weeks to get the money. So you're just basically just giving them an extra 10 days.
That's correct.
Another shot at it.
Right, that's
But at
correct.
the end of the day, they have to have the fees paid and the penalty paid. That's basically it.
Plus 1/2 of that original cost.
Whereas today, you don't give them you don't give them kind of a, hey, here's your last chance type of thing. You don't do that.
No.
The date comes up, you're done.
That's it. And this
Okay.
would be kind of that last chance.
Okay.
Now, are we talking business days or calendar days?
We're talking calendar days.
So Saturdays and Sundays included.
That's correct.
So if the 10th day falls on a Sunday and the city's not open, how does
In
one
almost every,
pay?
I'm sorry, in almost
their
every
fee?
circumstance, we give, if it falls on a Saturday or a Sunday, it's that next business day that we would take it to. So if the 10th day is on a Saturday or Sunday, it would be by close of business on the following Monday, the next business day.
Okay, then this question will be posed towards council. As far as it having calendar days in black and white, should it not read business days so that that won't be
We
a
may
glitch?
have a provision, a general provision in the code, the lawyers always do, that if the end of a 10th or the end of a calendar day isn't a business day, it always extends.
Well, that's
We
written.
act,
That's written.
in subsection C, as it applies to this suspension provision, we actually say that.
Okay,
Um,
see it.
And we always have our choice of using calendar days or business days. You just adjust the number. You know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Okay.
With calendar days, you don't have to get out your calendar and try and figure out what are holidays and.
No, I see here in
things
section
like
C
that,
where it
yeah.
says if the 10th day falls on a weekend or holiday, the next business day. Okay, that's fine.
So I'm clear on 7. Just go through D one more time, because some of this terminology is new to me. How does? what's
Let's
going on?
say a business on,
So
on
D-
July 1st
D
of this
affects
year.
current licenses.
Right.
Okay.
let's say a business on July 1st of this year, and that's probably not an ending date in Jim's system, but let's pretend it is. On July 1st, a licensee was automatically revoked under existing law.
Okay.
Okay, they now, under this bill as written, 90 days or 60 days, if you change that, would have that period of time within which to come back in, pay the money, the penalties, and get their license reinstated.
So why not just give them 10 days like under C? What's the difference?
10 days from something. The 10 days in C runs from the date that already exists out there.
Okay.
That is on the cycle. We had to run a different date in D because there's no event to run it. I mean, we could run it from the automatic revocation, which I guess we did, but we couldn't run it the same way because it happened in the past already. But if you're saying, 10 days after the revocation, the problem is there may be people out there who are well past the 10 days, and that doesn't help them.
Okay.
But like I say, the 90 day, like Jim said, the 90 days,
Okay, I
60
gotcha.
days, it was just an arbitrary figure. You can pick what you want that may help somebody.
Okay. I'm fine with 60 days.
Okay. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to be heard on this item or wishing to speak on this item? Please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. I am Juanita Clark, 137 Lorenzi, 89107, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Charleston Neighborhood Preservation. We're on a different level of that, and evidently, so anyway, dear recommending committee, this is dated the 31st of July, regarding item number 3 of August 4, 2009 agenda, bill number 2009-32. We adamantly oppose the approval of this bill to become an ordinance. We do not imagine any circumstance which justifies our elected mayor and council persons to grant the approval of a liquor license to a director. The granting of a temporary license by the director, allowed in paragraph A of section 35 -602035 surely creates great hardship to that business should the mayor and council find need to revoke or suspend that temporary granted license. We see little advantage in allowing the doors to open when loss of business and derogatory rumors would follow a closure. We see a great disadvantage in granting such power to an unelected person because the determination of a license fee paid and determination of penalties paid and the determination whether the 90-day window was met are all at the will of the director. Can the revocation be replaced with a suspension while retaining the approval only by the elected mayor and council persons? Please rework Bill number 2009-32 to maintain the power of reinstatement with the elected officials before a body of the public. Sincerely, President. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would ask this, having listened to the prior testimony here, to date, is it the director that currently makes that determination?
I'm sorry?
Is-
Repeat the question.
Today,
Mhm.
before this is passed, is it currently the director that makes a determination about whether or not to revoke a license?
No, it's the mayor and council.
Okay, so that's what we're asking for, is that remain with that, at that level.
Okay.
And I do have a copy of this here for you.
Thank you. Please submit it to the clerk.
But this doesn't change that.
All right, there's no authority to give the director revocation power here. The power is given to the calendar, which revokes something by calendar.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is there anyone else wishing to be heard or speak on this item? Hearing on, seeing none. Councilman?
I'll make a motion to approve this with the change of from 90 days to 60 days.
Okay. All in favor?
We'll have that appear in your council books as a second amendment to distinguish.
Okay. All in favor of this item?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, so moved. Thank you so very much. The next item is Bill number 2009-33, revises the zoning regulations governing small wind energy systems. And this is a text of 33703, sponsored by Councilman Stephen D. Ross. Staff?
Lynn Fagg with the Planning Department. Currently, our regulations only allow small wind energy systems on certain residential parcels with a minimum acreage of 2 acres. We're essentially proposing 3 major changes to our existing regulations. Number 1, we would open this up to certain commercial districts as well. Number 2, we would take away the minimum required parcel size. And then number 3, we establish setback regulations and configuration of the systems based on whether the parcels are under 20,000 square feet or over 20,000 square feet. The last issue relative to the parcels under 20,000 and over 20,000 square feet was a recommendation that came out of Planning Commission. I understand that the sponsor of the bill has some questions and would like some amendments, and so with that, I'll conclude my presentation and perhaps turn the time over to him.
Prior to him coming, I do want to ask a couple questions in regards to the commercial, the parcel size, and the third one you mentioned was?
That no minimum parcel size, and then we divide the standards by whether the parcel is under 20,000 square feet or over 20,000 square feet.
Okay. And that's for the parcel size?
Yes, that's relative to the parcel size.
Okay, and what about commercial?
So for commercial, what we have done is we've opened it up to the PR, O, C1, C2, CPB, CM, and M zoning districts. So those are all new districts where we would permit small wind energy systems.
And I see R1.
Yes, and R1 is also being added.
Help me understand the R1 piece.
Prior, we only allowed it in the RA, RE, and RD residential districts. We are opening it up to the R1 district. Because R1 parcels are typically about 6,500 square feet in size, they fall under the regulations for parcels under 20,000 square feet. What that requires is that the small wind energy system must be mounted on the principal structure, so you can't have a freestanding pole with a propeller on it for an R1 parcel.
So if I wanted to put one on my house,
If you wanted to put one on your roof, then yes, you would be subject to those regulations, and you could do that as a conditional use.
okay. Great. Councilman, please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilman Anthony. I'm Las Vegas City Councilman Steve Ross, representing Ward 6 in the Great Northwest. First, let me thank staff for finally getting this to this recommending committee. It's been a long trail to get to this point. This is a progressive statement by the City of Las Vegas, especially in support of their sustainability initiative. I have a few modifications, as Mr. Fagan indicated, I'd like to see on this bill. And I appreciate the hard work and efforts of our Planning Commission also in recognizing the importance of doing this. I'm a little selfish, and I will make these same comments at the City Council meeting. I want the City of Las Vegas to be on the forefront of energy systems that people that own homes in residential neighborhoods can use. We want to be on the forefront, cutting edge of renewable energy products and be that renewable city. These are the modifications I'm proposing. After working with some of the members of the community, I'm proposing to make 4 modifications to Bill 2009-33. I appreciate the opportunity to hear from members of our community who want to help the city with its sustainability initiatives. Number 1, since there would be some structural issues with mounting a unit directly to the home, this decision to place a system on a primary structure should be determined by the homeowner, their structural engineer and/or contractor. This would allow each property owner to determine what energy system would be most appropriate. This would allow older properties to utilize the wind energy systems without making changes to their existing homes or businesses, which now may be in non-conforming. Example, a home built in 1972, required to put a system on their roof, would have to bring that entire structure up to our current codes. So that would eliminate the ability for any of those homeowners or property owners to do so. With this, I would like to delete 2A, which would require that parcels under 20,000 square feet be required to only be mounted on the structure. I would like to replace 2A with the same language under 3A. I would also like to require that any parcel under 20,000 square feet be required to get a special use permit, which is RD and R1. This would satisfy the neighbors' concerns regarding the notification of these wind energy systems in more dense neighborhoods. I would like to edit number 4. Edit to say, more than one system on a parcel of land will require a special use permit, allowing each council member the ability to determine the appropriateness. I would like to edit 1B to the original language, which says a height of 50 feet for a parcel zoned RD, R1, or PR, and a height of 65 feet for a parcel zoned RA or RE, or a height of 90 feet on a parcel zoned O, C1, C2, CPB, CM, or M. And Mr. Steed, I will make all these modifications and recommendations available to you, so it'll be easy for you to decipher. And that is the end of my testimony in regards to this ordinance.
Staff, is there any issues with the recommendations that have been brought forward by the councilman?
I don't believe there are any issues. One thing I would like to do is to rewrite the ordinance and just verify that indeed it does read correctly, and I'm sure Mr. Steed would back me up on that. But no, I don't believe that there are any issues as presented by the councilman.
So would you suggest that we hold this in advance 2 weeks for the modification?
The direction I'm getting is no.
Mr. Chairman, you can stay there. The whole idea behind this is to get this moving. It's been many months since we started talking about this and created, making the adjustments to this ordinance. I would recommend to you, Mr. Chairman, that no, do not obey this. Allow staff to go ahead and rewrite this. The whole premise of this is to allow that business owner or that homeowner the ability to make their own choices. Do I want a wind system? Do I want a photovoltaic system? How many can I put on my property? How many can I afford? This is this is the beginning of a bigger picture in my mind as a city councilman. Because one day we're going to have a discussion at this recommending committee talking about how do we find some creative way to finance or to help homeowners finance these systems, to get them off the grid, to help with our environment, to help with our power needs. That's the next step that I'll be pushing for after we get this one, behind us. So I recommend not obeying that, Councilman.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned the number of wind turbines on a property. Do we have that, Flynn, within the code as far as the size of the parcel and limiting the number of wind turbines? For example, my home, if I wanted to have 6, I don't believe that 6 would fit, but is there a limitation to are we looking at the size of the parcel in relation to the number of turbines, if you will, to a parcel? How are we gauging that process? Is that built in?
Yeah, essentially what we're saying is that you can do the first one as a conditional use permit. If you do more than one, then what is being requested is that you would be required to go through a special use permit process. And so that way, Planning Commission, City Council will review those and see, is that request appropriate? And is it appropriate for the context of the neighborhood as well?
Okay.
So there are controls that would be in
So
place.
the control will be the SUP.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that was the whole point of my modification
Okay.
to the bill, or to the amended bill, was to give each council member the ability to make that decision. I mean, let the neighbors make that decision and let them be notified and say, hey, this is working, or it doesn't work in my neighborhood.
So one would not require the SUP, but more than one would?
Depending on the type. With the modification as made by the councilman today, if you are doing a freestanding, then you would be required to do a special use permit. If you were doing one that is attached directly to the principal structure, then no, you wouldn't have to do a special use permit. It would just be a conditional use.
Can I just ask, what does this look like on a typical house? I mean, is it just a box?
There's a whole
Yeah,
different variety of systems.
Yeah, Councilman, there's a couple of technologies out there. A representative of one of the systems is here in the audience today, with us today. The typical standard wind generation system is a pole with a wind generator and a propeller, basically. There's currently one at the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Training Center down in East Bonanza. I believe that pole's 50 feet.
I gotta get over to the
45 feet.
Keep calm.
The decibel level was a concern, the amount of noise they created in neighborhoods. And the technology has advanced so much that the decibel level is pretty minimal. There's another technology of coned technology, and I haven't seen that in residential or commercial use yet, or have I seen the product actually available?
Picture, they're available.
Perhaps if Ms. Tabor would come up and introduce herself and then give some examples for the recommending committee.
Please state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Nancy Tabor. I also want to thank everybody for their hard work on this. This has been a long process for everyone. The vertical axis wind generator is actually based out of Reno. I have a picture if you want to take a look at it. It does exist. It's UL listed and CEC listed. You can get the Nevada Energy rebate from it. I don't have currently any installs in Las Vegas, but I have customers who are interested and anxiously awaiting the outcome of the code. So they are made specifically to be installed potentially in trios, and I have a picture of what they look like.
So this
And these
tall
pictures are-
thing is attached to the top of the house?
That picture's in Reno. Right, it's 30-foot tall, so the 10-foot pole with a 20-foot propeller apparatus on top of it.
Okay.
Were there any other questions?
I guess the only other question is, does the public need to hear these amendments read again, or, I mean, does it have to go back to recommending committee based on the amendments, or?
Oh,
we
it
just-
could. We've heard discussions that that's the preference is that we send it to the full council as a first amendment.
So
For the
it's-
benefit of the public, maybe someone can make a presentation at the council meeting so that the public is aware of the changes that have been made. While I've got the floor here, let me just say, and maybe Flynn can correct me if I'm wrong, we may not have to mention anything about use permits in here because the default, if you can't get a conditional use because you can't meet some standard, is that you go to a special use permit. Sometimes we adjust the default, and you'll see in condition 12 that some of those, some of the conditions can be taken to through the use permit process for relief. Others cannot, and I think it calls out 2, 3, and 4 specifically, and I think those relate to the mounting and the number of systems on a parcel. So we may not need to say anything at all because it was written that way. It was written to say if you can't meet these standards by conditional use permit, you have to go, by conditional use, you have to go for a special use permit. Insofar as the code issue, we won't be able to do much here in our zoning ordinance with reference to code requirements, building code requirements. But as far as the other items that the councilman mentioned, I'm sure that we can incorporate them into the conditions.
Okay. You have a motion, sir?
Before you vote, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to make another a closing statement. This is important for, just as a symbol, that the city is trying to move forward with doing everything we can for our environment, doing everything we can for energy. It's no secret we already have a fuel-efficient fleet of vehicles. I think we're 90% renewables and the whole 9 yards. So that's important. We're moving forward with projects, I know in your ward, with some solar issues at some of our parks and some of our parking structures. This is a statement to the rest of this country that we are being as progressive as we possibly can to motivate people to use these systems and to give them the choice to do so on how they want to do it. Thank you.
Right. Hearing that. Councilman Strobel?
I'll make a motion to approve this with the amendments.
As a First Amendment.
That's the First Amendment?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Thank you, sir. At this time, we are under public participation. Citizens' participation, public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the committee. No subject may be acted upon by the committee unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come to the podium and give your name. For the record, the amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Councilman. I am extremely enthusiastic and very proud of the statement Las Vegas is making symbolically and pragmatically by the bill governing the wind turbines. I'm very, very grateful to the staff, to the Councilman Ross, and to all those individuals who have worked so hard on something that's so compellingly important. On the same line, as far as energy conservation and sustainability, the G20 will occur in Pittsburgh on the 26th of August. The reason I mention this is their Pittsburgh Convention and Visitors Authority is the first gold LEED certified facility. I recommend highly that you check that out. Also the Phipps Conservatory. Also wanted to mention that the Lou Brain Institute will be opening shortly. I encourage all of our public and our officials and our staff to visit the Cleveland Clinic Hospital in Dubai. The Cleveland Clinic is a fantastically endowed foundation. It is my take on Alzheimer's in particular that it'll be multi-sourced, but all this will be very edifying. I thank you very much for your time and have a great day.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to be heard at this time or speak at this time? Seeing none, the recommending meeting is closed.